Hello, my name is Maya. Welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be the day that I reveal a, 52-page supernatural fix-it-fic that I wrote. Super fun. I wrote it originally as like a Halloween fic. So like what my best friends and I did for Halloween is we each like dressed up as a fanfic dean. But I wanted to be this pillow because I think this pillow is hilarious, but I don't know where this fanfic piece of art, this art right here, matching too. I didn't know where this piece of art came from. So I had to create my own fanfic in order to present them because we each read the fanfic that we dressed up as the dean in. So that's where this started. And originally what I was gonna do for this segment of my Dean and Cass videos was I was going to rewrite basically like a third of Supernatural to make Dean and Cass canon. And then, you know, the world said, Maya, do you even have time to do that? And the answer was no, I did not have time to do that. I had a lot going on. And I realized that I couldn't like find the time to rewrite literally like 8 seasons worth of content. It's a lot of work. So instead I decided to just write a fix-it-fic and just rewrite the last like 3 episodes. And I think that's kind of okay because yes, originally I wanted to kind of prove that like to Supernatural that they could have made Dean and Cass canon and still have kind of had the same show, like it wouldn't have changed too much. And I was trying to prove a point, but at the same time, like I don't have time to prove that point, you know, like who has time to do that? So instead what I did was I just finished the fix-it-fic that I started for Halloween because I just basically fixed the end of episode 18, which if you don't know is when Cass dies. So what I did is I just continued from where I stopped with that fanfic. So what you're gonna see is this random moment where you're like, Maya, what the fuck are you going on about? This is getting really fanfic. And that's because I had to add the angel wings because it's on the fanfic pillow. And so that is gonna be this random moment where it's like, no, don't take me seriously there. I just had to add that. But also I couldn't get rid of it for this because it like would get rid of the spice and flavor. But yeah, this is a fanfic. So before I begin, a few things. First of all, everyone wanted the show to end in their own perfect way. So the way that I chose to end the show might not be the way that you want the show to end, and that's okay because the problem with endings is that you can't satisfy everyone. What I tried to do though is to kind of make an ending that I think would satisfy the majority of people, though I'm not saying that it would satisfy everyone. So this might be an ending that you love, or this might be an ending that you're like, well, I didn't want that to happen, and that's totally fine as well because Supernatural has given up the rights to think of their own ending. You are the only person who can come up with your own ending of Supernatural. And I guarantee you it will be better for you at least, and probably a lot of other people because Supernatural really dropped the ball there. So that's that, you know, like it's just what I think. So like if you don't agree, that's totally fine. It's just how I would like it to end and how I kind of thought they should have closed everyone's character arcs. Another thing, I have an entirely separate video where I just rant about the finale. So if you want a little refresher, I believe it's part 5 of my Supernatural series where I rant about the finale. I have now put each of the parts that I talk about in the description so that people can like bounce around if they want to. But if you want to, I do have that rant. And obviously like I might say things like, for instance, I say, oh, I didn't really mind Jack being God. And yeah, that's true. I didn't. But that doesn't mean that's my ideal ending. So just because I said that I didn't mind something, or I kind of see where they were coming from some points of view, doesn't mean that that's not the ending that like I would have chosen, you know? Like, this is my ideal ending, and that doesn't mean that it's the ending that I would have been like, would have settled for, basically. And I had to really scrimp and look through the shit to find anything good about that ending. So if there's a few things that like maybe seem a bit contradictory in what I said in that video, then that's like, that's normal, because that's something I would settle for and something that I'm fine with, but it doesn't mean it's my ideal ending, and this is my ideal ending, I guess. Even me, like, as a perfectionist, wanted to like change this a little bit after writing it, but I was like, no, you're gonna stick with it. Also, you have 0 time to do that, so like, just don't. Yeah, also, I might put this on AO3. I haven't decided yet, but I definitely wanted to do this because I did say to literally no audience, but for myself, because I'm stubborn AF, I did say I would do some sort of like fan fiction thing, so I am gonna do that. I'm gonna stick to my word, and that is what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna be filming this over multiple days because I'm about to probably in like an hour give up, so let's see how far we get. And let's begin. So I'm gonna set the scene here. We're jumping right into the to Cass's death scene, as most fix-it fics tend to do. So if you haven't seen that, you're gonna be very confused, but you know, I also love the energy if you are here just for me to read my fanfic, because it's fun that I'm admitting I have a 52-page fanfic. Love that. Okay, here we go. Imagine you are in the dungeon and you're in the death scene. Everyone knows the death scene. So gives me mixed feelings. Here we go. God, I don't even want to start. No, there's like no one here but my hamster. So, Garth Davies, I hope you enjoy. I love you. Cass's words reverberate across the dungeon. The distant pounding of death knocking at the door fades away under those words that Dean had always wanted to hear. Don't do this, Cass, Dean says, the words he really wants to say buried under the urgency of the situation, the gravity of the matter not coming into clarity until he heard a weird sound behind him. Dean turned to see black ink materializing on the wall behind him. Reality hits, and he finally realizes what Cass did. He turns back to face a teary-eyed Cass, death still knocking at the door, the empty growing would want Cass soon. Cass, Dean says, looking into those sky blue eyes. You know, pause for me here. I have read, admittedly, a lot of Dean and Cass fanfics, so the sky blue eyes is very familiar to me, and I just had to include it because I feel like it's really funny. It's always sky blue eyes for Cass. Those beautiful sky blue eyes. Do you see them? And then like apple green eyes. I love it. I did it for you, the fanfic girlies. Thank you, AO3. Dean says, looking into those sky blue eyes, I love you too. This is the first change from that scene. You know what I mean? Now we're going to fanfic realm. Cass's face falters as though he wasn't expecting that response. Dean brings one hand up to gently cup Cass's cheek. He takes one step forward so they're scant inches away. He tilts his head down and rests his forehead on Cass's. He can feel Cass's breath tickle his cheek. His thumb gently wipes away a tear from Cass's cheek. Dean, Cass whispers, his voice shaky. I'm sorry. Dean reaches his free hand into the pocket of Cass's trench coat and grips the tiny pocket knife that Cass had taken from him only moments earlier. Cass's hand comes up to rest gently on Dean's shoulder just as the door bursts open. You should be, you asshole. Who gave you permission to die? Dean responds at the same time. He brings the pocket knife up and cuts Cass's neck just as Cass's grip tightens on his shoulder. Dean, Cass calls in response, letting go of Dean's shoulder. Cass's grace comes spilling out of a cut on his neck and floats in front of Dean's face. Yes, Dean whispers and opens his mouth to take in Cass's grace. Cass's grace enters his mouth and immediately starts to burn his mouth. The grace slides down his throat, causing excruciating pain. He calls out and falls to the ground, clutching his throat. His vision starts to go blurry as his head spins under the intense pain. He can't remember his face hitting the floor, but suddenly the cool cement of the dungeon collides with his cheek. The burning intensifies. He can see something black shoot out of the wall he's facing. There's a loud sound and a scream permeates the air. The room around him disappears into darkness. Scene change. I'm gonna just like interject with a bit of like reasoning for doing things. So I love that pocket knife because I find it just so fucking domestic that Cass knew exactly where Dean had his pocket knife, and Dean said nothing when Cass reached into his front pocket and grabbed this teeny little pocket knife to like make the warding symbol that he was putting on the door. And I love that. It's one of my favorite parts of that scene, which is hilarious because like, I don't know, I just love it. There's also this one scene where like earlier in the series where Cass like Dean takes a water bottle out of Cass's, no, Cass takes a water bottle out of Dean's, no, Cass takes handcuffs out of Dean's, something, no, I think it was handcuffs. Cass takes handcuffs out of Dean's like backpack and he doesn't even need to look for it. He just knows exactly where the handcuffs are. I love that. I love that energy. It's everything. So I really liked that scene. And so of course I remember that the pocket knife was there. And then I had actually read a fanfic. So this is not like a original idea for me, but I thought this person was like really onto something there, where she had gotten rid of the empty by just having Dean cut Cass's grace out. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just write the pocket knife in and then have, you know, Dean cut the grace out. And then here's where the fact that I had to have Dean have angel wings come in. I made him eat the grace, which in reality, if I didn't have to have Dean have angel wings, I would not have had him eat the grace. I would have just had him like the grace just like float off or something. But I had things to accomplish. This fanfic pillow needed to be honored in some way. So that is why he eats the grace. I know it's weird. Also, I can't remember, but I don't think we've seen any human like physically eat grace. So I'm assuming it would be extremely painful. And so that's kind of the assumption that I made there. I wouldn't have had that happen in that exact same way, though I would have had the pocket knife and the cutout, the grace, if I didn't need to have Dean have angel wings later on. So back to the fanfic, little behind the scenes of the author. Dean wakes up lying on his bed. He immediately notices that his throat is on fire. His hand gently touches his throat. The slight touch makes him wince in pain. Through the constant pain, he can feel something else sitting in his neck. When he brings his hand to the area, he can feel the energy coming from there. Cass's grace. Visions of the night before come flooding in. Cass? Question mark. Where is Cass? Question mark. He thinks, taking in his quiet bedroom. There's a small glass of water on his nightstand. He grabs it and gulps it down like it was cheap beer. It did little to satiate the pain. Dean slowly moves his legs over the side of the bed. He's still in the clothes from the night before, or a few hours ago. Dean had no idea how long he's been out for. He stands wobbly on his feet, but he makes it to his closed door fine. He opens it and calls out into the hallway. Cass? His voice reverberates throughout the bunker. It doesn't even sound like his voice. It's so broken and raspy, like he'd smoked a pack of cigarettes a day for years. Cass? He calls out again, a sense of urgency running throughout him. Cass, you better not be dead. I'm not dead, Dean. He turns to see Cass walking down the hallway, a stern look on his face. But you will be if you don't go back and lie down. Gee, Cass, really? That's how you're going to greet me? I saved your life, you know. Dean tries to keep the smile of relief off of his face. Cass comes to stand in front of Dean, who started using the wall as a support. Cass crosses his arms and frowns slightly. Dean, I was trying to save your life. You almost died. What were you thinking? I was trying to save your ass. That's what I was thinking. Dean says, a slight bite to his voice. Next time you want to die after professing your love to me, I'll just let you. Dean goes back into his room, not even waiting for Cass's response. He slowly sits himself on the edge of his bed. He rests his head in his hand, trying to ignore the burning pain in his throat and his heart. Got very fanfic there. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of fanfics where they just like immediately start like making out or something. I don't see that for them. Like if you do, that's like awesome, like you do you. But like for me specifically, I feel like these two, especially this one, is avoidant as fuck. and he will literally like be pissy and like a baby for a while, and then like he'll have to try to communicate his feelings, but he'll suck at it. And I feel like that's just where it would be, you know. I just don't think they would like immediately click back together just because Cass said he was in love with Dean. Like, even if Dean says it back, like I just feel like they have so much they have to work through, and Dean's a very avoidant person that I feel like he would just like start off by being offended that Cass would ever think of dare dying on him, because he has abandonment issues. So that's kind of where I thought Dean's head would be at, you know. And then Cass would also be like pissed that Dean tried to die because he also doesn't want Dean to die, you know, and then just pissed, you know. Dean, Cass says softly. The bed next to Dean shifts slightly, announcing that Cass has joined him on the bed. I'm sorry. I thought you were gonna die, Dean. You scared me. It was the only thing I could think of. I couldn't lose you, Cass. Dean can feel tears forming in his eyes, and he can't tell if it's from the continuous burning or the delayed fear of losing Cass coming through. Cass's arms encircle his back, and he rests his head on Dean's shoulder. I'm still here, Dean. I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon. But you were planning on leaving me, Dean says, the anger bubbling in his chest. Tears start flowing down his face freely. You were planning on never telling me about your deal with the empty. Dean, I didn't want to worry you. I really didn't think I would ever reach my true happiness. Cass rests his chin on Dean's shoulder. Can you please look at me, Dean? Okay, yeah. I also think that Dean would be like, he'd be hurt. Dean has a past of being very upset when he doesn't get told things, especially by Cass. So I feel like Cass not telling him this would actually be like really upset to him. And the fact that Cass in the first place made a deal that would like take him away from Dean, yeah, I just don't think he'd be very happy about it. Dean digs the palm of his hand deeper into his wet eyes. His body starts shaking and the burning in his throat seems to consume him. Cass rubs his hand gently over his back. His other hand grips Dean's shaking wrist. Did you know what your true happiness would be? Dean asks, allowing Cass to guide his hand off of his face. He slowly straightens up to face Cass. Cass keeps his hand on Dean's back and he laces his other free hand through Dean's. You. I wanted you, Cass says softly. Not as a best friend or as a brother, but as a romantic partner. So you made a deal knowing that if you ever started dating me, you would die? Dean shakes his head and chuckles softly. That's messed up, buddy. It was to save Jack. You know that, Dean. Cass sighs, not finding this as funny as Dean. Was I wrong to have made that deal, Dean? I assumed that you did not want to date me, so really, my life was safe. Right, but then you said you loved me and almost died anyways, so not the point. Dean scratches his head and his free hand awkwardly, finally realizing how close they were sitting. I was never going to express that I was in love with you, Dean, so that would not have been an issue if I did it to save you from Billy. Cass sighs and removes his hand from Dean's back. Dean immediately missed it. What happened to Billy? Dean says, avoiding Cass's piercing gaze. The empty took her. You're lucky the empty didn't take you as well, Dean. Cass says, a look of disappointment flashing across his face. Cass looks down at their still intertwined hands. You have some angel grace still in you. We need to remove it quickly. It already damaged you, and the longer it stays in, the more damage it will cause. I would heal you, but I'm human now. Right. Sorry about that. Dean looks at the bandage that he just noticed on Cass's neck. I get why you'd be mad at me for that. I'm not mad, Dean. I'm okay being human. I was losing a lot of my angel powers anyways. Cass shrugs and gently takes his hand from Dean's. Do you feel okay getting the angel grace out now? I think so, Dean says. Cass gestures for Dean to follow him out the door. Dean gets up, still a bit wobbly on his feet. His throat still burning. He wipes the tears off of his face and shakes his head. Hey, Cass, he says. Cass turns and faces him. He quirks his head to the side in that cute little way he does. Yeah, that was me being a self-insert author. I think it's adorable when he does that. Anyways. Yes, Dean. His smile is ever so soft and his expression slightly hopeful. Have you heard from Sam or Jack? Dean says, silently kicking himself as Cass's face slumps. Yes, they are driving back. They are a few hours out. Cass's face looks solemn. Apparently the entire population of the Earth disappeared thanks to Chuck. Yeah, I didn't change that. I took everything that had happened in episode 18 and only changed the ending. So everything that happened with Sam and Jack, it happened. I didn't change that. I'm gonna just work it out in my own way. Jesus Christ, Cass, Dean exclaims. You could have led with that. Well, you're injured, plus there's nothing we can do about it right now. Cass scratches the back of his neck. We'll wait for Sam and Jack to come back before we do anything. Let's just get the grace out of you. Okay, but next time leave with the relevant information, Cass, Dean says and stomps after Cass, who huffs and leads him down the hallway to the med ward. Classic them. I say to this that I wrote. I think it's classic them. Thoughts? Arguments? Anyone want to be mad at me? Now's your time. They walked to the med ward in silence. Once they got there, Cass directed Dean to sit on one of the beds near a big window that looks out onto the command center. Dean sits down begrudgingly. Do we really need to be in the med ward for this, Cass? Yes, we do, because the author said. So I said so, Dean. Trust me on this. I'm building up to something. And it's this fanfic pillow. Just you wait. It's so genius when you see it. Oh, 10 out of 10. I deserve, like, awards for this build-up. Dean says, crossing his arms, his back facing the window. Yes, Dean, Cass rolls his eyes. The grace has probably been damaged. Who knows what taking it out will do. So you're going to try to slurp it up? I call it slurping grace, and I will hear no complaints. Dean says, picking at his pants as Cass turns to grab a surgical blade and container to hold the grace. No, I'm going to stay human, Dean. There are many possibilities available to me as a human that I did not see the first time around. Cass looks over his shoulder, a question in his eyes. Okay, here we go. Everyone ready? This is genius writing. Genius writing. Let me just take a sip from my water from my $30 mason jar water bottle. I got it from Fort Langley, a specialty store. And it was $30. Why do I do this? Suddenly, a flashing pain courses through Dean's body. He leans forward as an invisible force pushes his back down. A cry escapes his mouth, and he can feel something pushing out of his back. The tearing in his back sends large pain waves through his entire body, making the fire in his throat subside. He can barely breathe, and his head starts spinning. Suddenly, his legs stand up of their own volition. He stumbles back as an extra weight pulls his body back. There's a shattering sound as he falls through the window behind him. In the distance, he can hear Cass calling out his name. He closes his eyes as glass permeates the air. He lands on his back, except there's some sort of cushion that stops his fall. He opens his eyes to find huge white wings encircling his face. Okay, all right. There's shards of glass with blood on it. And he fell through a glass window with the wings. I'm a genius. I was gonna do a line of vases, and then I was like, why would there be a line of vases? Just do a window. This part probably shouldn't be in the fanfic, but we're gonna do it because I am sticking to my guns. Cass, Dean yells, why the fuck do I have wings? Yeah, they're swearing now because I have a potty mouth, and I imagine Dean has a potty mouth. Dean, are you okay? Cass's voice sounds close, but he can't see anything beyond his wing cocoon. I'm fine, except that I have fairy wings now, Dean grumbles. Dean, they're angel wings. I have them too. You just never got to see them in their true form. Cass says, his hand touches Dean's arm. Dean, I'm going to need you to unfurl them. Yeah, so this is very common in fanfic, as is the indication on the fanfic pillow. But everyone wants them to have like the Lucifer style wings. You know the TV show Lucifer, they have like wings you can actually see the white ones. It's really common in fanfic that I've seen, and yeah, I've read a few of them where like they have the white wings. So I just kind of did that where they're like, oh, Cass's true form of the wings is just the white wings that Lucifer has, but he conceals them, or Dean can't see them, or something like that. I just take that straight from every fanfic I've ever read. Cass, I don't know how to do that, Dean yells in frustration. They're connected to your body. It's like moving your arms, Cass says, a hint of humor in his voice. Oh, you think this is funny? Dean grumbles as he forces the wings to unfurl. Surprisingly, just imagining them move did the trick. His wings move to reveal a Cass standing with his arms crossed and a small smirk on his face. Don't tell Sam about this, Dean says, moving his wings a bit. Promise. Cass smiles and offers Dean a hand up. Dean grabs it and pulls him up so they're once again inches from each other's face. Dean looks down at Cass's lips and then back at his face. They're so close. Maybe we should close the distance. Suddenly, a sharp pain flares on his neck and he falls to the ground as the wings quickly disappear from his back. On his hands and knees, panting, he looks up to see Cass standing with a bloody scalpel and a small vial full of a small amount of grace. I got rid of the wings very quickly. It's a quick cameo of the fanfic pillow, but not the entire story. We have other things to say, you know. Payback, Cass smirks and grabs a rag from his pocket, handing it to Dean. Dean places it on his neck to stop the steady stream of blood. I suppose I deserve that. Cass walks back into the med ward via the now huge hole in the window, which I never fix. So, plot hole, literally. It's literally a plot hole. And puts the scalpel and flickering angel grace down on the table. Meanwhile, Dean stands up and makes his way to the command center table, finding a seat and that he slumps into. Cass comes back with a bandage similar to the one on his neck and a small antiseptic wipe in his other hand. Dean slowly removes the cloth from his neck as Cass comes to stand above him. Cass makes quick work of the cut, barely letting his fingers touch Dean's neck for more than a moment. Once Cass is satisfied, he goes and sits in the chair next to Dean's. "How are you feeling?" Cass asks, meeting Dean's eyes. "Peachy," Dean replies, crossing his arms over his chest. "Just peachy." Cass rolls his eyes. "You're still hurting then?" "Well, my throat is still in pain," Dean shrugs, shuffling in his seat. "Can I get you some water?" Cass says, already getting up out of his chair. Dean's hand grips Cass's wrist before he can leave and pulls him towards Dean's chair. Cass lets Dean drag him towards his chair, so he's standing in between Dean's splayed out legs. He looks down at Dean, who is staring intently at his hand on Cass's wrist. "Why are you never going to tell me you were in love with me?" Dean whispers, still not meeting Cass's eyes. "Didn't have any reason to believe that you felt the same way, so it didn't seem worth bringing up." Cass shrugs. "Was I wrong, Dean?" "Well, I said it back, didn't I?" Dean says with a bit more frustration. His eyes finally wander up to meet Cass's. Cass nods, a faint smile playing on his lips. "You did. And how do you love me, Dean? As a brother? Or a best friend, perhaps?" "What do you think?" Dean says, more agitated now. The grip on Cass's wrist gets tighter. "I honestly don't know, Dean." Cass brings his fingers to rest on Dean's cheek and he leans down so that their noses touch. "I don't want to have any false hope, Dean. I can live contently as your best friend for the rest of my life if that's all you want." "But you wouldn't be truly happy," Dean whispers, bringing his forehead to rest on Cass's, his hand resting on the back of Cass's head. "And I want you to be happy." Cass immediately pulls back from Dean. Dean's hand falls from Cass's head and Cass takes a big step back. He shakes his wrist, indicating that Dean should let go of the grip on his wrist. Dean lets go of Cass's hand. Cass's face is a mixture of sadness and anger. Dean gets up out of his chair and takes a step towards Cass, and Cass immediately keeps his distance by taking a step back in turn. "Cass, what the fuck?" Dean throws his hands up in frustration. "What did I do now?" "Do you only want to be with me because you feel like you have to make me happy?" Cass shakes his head. "I don't want your pity, Dean." "Cass, for fuck's sake." Dean runs a hand over his face in frustration. "That's not why I want to be with you. That's not why I reciprocated." "Then why?" Cass stares at Dean, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and hurt. "Because I'm fucking in love with you, Cass." I'm realizing now I made Dean swear a lot. I have no regrets, though. Dean practically yells that in frustration. "That's why, Cass." Silence fills the bunker as Cass stares at Dean, who is standing with his hands at his sides, fists clenched, his breathing slightly elevated. The anger starts to subside and Dean fully realizes that he just yelled out. Cass continues to stare at Dean with a small smile seems to be appearing on his lips, though. "So maybe I didn't need to yell that," Dean says awkwardly, because it had been a minute of pure agonizing silence. "Not very romantic, I guess. I mean, you made an entire speech." I fucking love that speech. If only it wasn't tainted by everything that happened after that speech. "I'm in love with you too, Dean." Cass's face breaks out into a huge grin. Even after that, Dean jokes slightly, though he can barely breathe as Cass, still smiling, reaches out to hold his hand again. "Dean, I've been in love with you for 13 years. I've seen you at your worst and at your best, and my love for you never wavered. Why would it start today?" Cass takes a step forward and loops both of his arms around Dean's neck. 13 years, huh? Dean teases, wrapping his arms around Cass's back to pull their bodies closer. "Was it love at first sight? Because I'm just so irresistible." "Dean," Cass pulls Dean's face closer so their foreheads are touching. "Shut up." The retort that Dean had on his lips gets lost as Cass brings their lips together. The kiss is short and sweet. Cass pulls back so he's looking into Dean's eyes, his eyes full of an indescribable happiness. Was that okay, Dean? Cass whispers as though Dean would run away at any moment. We can take things slow. That was better than okay, Cass. Dean smiles in response, bringing their lips in for another chase kiss. Do you want to take things slow? Whatever you're comfortable with, Dean. Cass hums out in happiness. Okay, well, fuck slow then. Sam and Jack are still out and I have a bed down the hall. Dean motions his head towards his room. I like communication. You're gonna realize that very quickly. I just wanted them all to talk. So that's what basically all this fanfic is. But I feel like there are conversations that the supernatural never let them have, so I'm gonna let them have it. And I love that power for me, you know? Cass's eyes widen. Really? Yes, Cass. Dean chuckles and slowly removes Cass's arms from his neck. Dean secures his hand in Cass's and starts pulling Cass's confused body towards the hallway. Also, I didn't write any sex scenes, and I'm not gonna read any sex scenes that I have written on this channel. So just know that that's not happening. It's just implied. For sexual intercourse, Cass asks as Dean pulls him around the corner and down the hall towards his room. Preferably that would be what we do. Dean laughs, pulling Cass along quicker, but Cass starts to protest as they reach Dean's door. Dean turns to Cass and drops his hand, instead bringing it up to Cass's tie. He tugs it lightly so that Cass's face was less than an inch from his. Do you or do you not want to have sex with me, Cass? I like how I said that. Yes, of course I do, Dean. Cass gulps. I just wasn't expecting it right now. No time like the present. Dean opens the door to his room and kisses Cass lightly on the lips. You coming? Cass nods fast and Dean pulls his tie as he leads Cass towards the bed. Just as their lips are about to touch, Sam's voice reverberates throughout the bunker. Dean, Cass. Yeah, that's right. I made Sam a cock block. Just like Supernatural did, though. So, like, was it really out of character? Also, I am deeply obsessed with the tie tagging, so just let me have it, okay? I love Sam, but right now I could kill him. Dean laughs, letting go of Cass's tie. To be continued? Definitely. Cass brushes his lips lightly over Dean's again. Dean, Cass, are you okay? Sam's voice grows louder as he scours the hall for them. In my room, Sam. Dean calls out, taking a step back from Cass, giving him a sly wink. We're okay. This is where the original fic ended. So everything else I wrote after this was not for my Halloween fanfic thing. This was me adding on. So in total, my Halloween fanfic was 9 pages. And then I wrote an extra 43? No, 33. I can do math. Can I? Was that correct? No, I was right. No, 43. 43 was correct. It's been a long day. I've been up since 4:30, okay? Anyways, what did we think? They love it. They love it. Look at them. They look so happy. They just smolder constantly. It's like, they do this in the show, of course, but like, you know, the constant smolder. Alright. Sam's quick footsteps could be heard coming down the bunker hallway. Another more quiet pair of footsteps appeared to accompany Sam's. Sam's form appears in the doorway, followed by Jack. They both look frazzled, though relief enters their eyes as they both see Dean and Cass are okay. Sam walks forward and pulls Dean in for a hug. Jack does the same to Cass. Once Sam lets Dean go, Dean reaches a hand out and grips Jack's shoulder, giving it a little squeeze. Glad you're okay, kid. Yeah, that's right. I'm fixing shit. Watch me fix. Dean, what happened? Sam says, diverting his eyes from Jack's small smile forming on his face. Cass said you were unconscious. Billy's dead and Cass is human now. That's all you need to know. Evasive. Tell me that's not what he would do. He's so evasive. Dean grumbles out. Sam narrows his eyes and crosses his arm over his chest, his eyes bouncing back and forth between the matching bandages on Dean and Cass's neck. Cass told me the entire population of the Earth disappeared. That should be our first priority. We couldn't stop it, Dean. Everyone just kept disappearing. None of the wards worked. Jack shakes his head in frustration and grief tainting his voice. It was Chuck, not Billy, who was making everyone disappear, Cass says. His hand reassuringly grips Jack's shoulder. You did all you could, Jack. How are we going to stop Chuck? Jack asks, looking between Dean, Cass, and Sam as though they would find the answers. I guess that's our next step, Sam responds, shaking his head. He has to have a weakness, but what that is, I have no idea. Billy could have reaped him, but now that she's dead, we don't know when the next death will be anointed. How did you guys get rid of Billy? Cass and Dean shuffle their feet slightly before Dean says, why don't we all get cleaned up? I'll make us some food, and then we can talk about everything. I am quite hungry, Sam murmurs as Dean starts to shepherd everyone out of his room, and I could use a shower. See, there you go. Dean closes the door behind him. I'll get started on some burgers. Cass, you want to help? Cass nods as Sam reluctantly heads to his room. Jack looks between Dean and Cass and asks, can I help you guys? Sure, Jack. Cass smiles, ignoring Dean's silent protests of wanting alone time. You can cut the veggies. Scene change. I mean, minus the wing fiasco, that is kind of how I imagined their kind of first little interaction about their feelings and like their first kiss would kind of be like. I just feel like it's so nice to think everything would go so perfectly, but like, no, they probably have an argument before they like finally figured everything out. And I feel like after years of them being like so evasive with their feelings, it would be really hard for them to kind of like face them head on. So we're gonna continue doing that. But yes, that was the first kind of kiss. What did we think? I think it was 10 out of 10, but you know, to each their own. I did write this, I'm a little bit biased. Sam, Dean, Cass, and Jack all sit in silence eating their burgers around the table in the kitchen. Dean and Cass are sitting across from each other. Their eyes meet every once in a while, causing them to hold each other's gazes until one of them looks away with a slight blush in their cheeks. Dean has also been attempting to hook his foot with Cass's. Cass has been attempting to subtly push Dean's foot away, but is losing the battle. Jack, meanwhile, is blissfully eating his burger, while Sam eats his burger trying to figure out what's different with Dean and Cass. Tell me that's not, like, a scene that would happen. Like, come on. Jack's just eating his burger, and Sam's like, what the fuck is going on? And they're just playing footsie. I love it. Headcanon. So, are you guys gonna tell me how you killed Billy? Sam asks, finally getting tired of the weird silent staring game going on between Dean and Cass. Cass made a deal with the Empty to save Jack's life, and he called in his deal. I cut the grace out of Cass's neck so the Empty wouldn't take him, and the Empty took Billy as well. Dean says, suddenly finding his burger super interesting. Wait, you made a deal and didn't tell us? Sam says, looking between Cass and Jack. Cass, we could have done something about it. I honestly didn't think the Empty would take me, Cass says to Sam, though his eyes flicker to Dean, who is still fixated on his burger. Plus, now that we have broken the deal, we don't know what's going to happen with Jack. I'm worried the Empty will come and take him. I don't have my powers anymore, though, Cass, Jack says sadly. I don't think the Empty can take me. I'm probably human now. Shit, I'm sorry, Jack. Dean shakes his head in frustration. I didn't think of what would happen to you in that moment. I should have, though. It's okay, Dean. Jack smiles. I'm glad you saved Cass. Jack's right, Dean. He doesn't appear to have any grace left in him, so perhaps the Empty will leave him alone. Cass shrugs, smiling half-heartedly. Maybe this will work out in our favor for once. I don't know about Jack not having any powers anymore, Sam says, resting his head on his chin. Jack, you've been absorbing power, haven't you? What do you mean he's absorbing power? Dean replies, putting his burger down and looking Sam in the eyes. I saw him get near a plant and it wilted. Supernatural, I have questions. First of all, like, I guess I'm gonna do this right now. First of all, I will accept the power vacuum as a concept. I wasn't mad about it. I mean, I'm using it right now in my Fix-It Fix, so obviously it was fine with me. But like, the plant thing kind of threw me for a loop because I understand him absorbing like angel power, you know, like I get it, or God's power. That makes sense, but why was he absorbing plants? I mean, I use it later on. I fully use it. I'm a little bit like, is it because it's the power of the earth? Like anything that has power? Would he not be absorbing like power from every living being then, not just plants? Like he'd be absorbing power right now from like Sam and Dean and Cass. Does that not make sense? Like it just seems like it's interesting that it was only plants. And it was only like specific plants that Supernatural wanted you to see wilt. Like, yeah, I don't know. He should have been absorbing like all of like human power, like including like life forces of them, or he should have just been absorbing like angels and celestial beings and stuff like that. I don't really understand where plants fit in if you're not going to have it go all the way. Sam says, maybe he became a vacuum for power after he blew up in the empty. Sam's so smart. We love that ex machina brain. I'm going to use it. Don't worry. That has been happening. I just didn't know why, Jack responds, looking down at his hands. Does that mean I can regain my powers? Maybe, but it also means that the empty may still want you. Sam runs a hand over his face. Cass, what were the terms of your deal? Maybe we can offer the empty something else of equal value. I just traded my life for Jack's. Perhaps we can trade the empty once more for a life more valuable than mine, Cass sighs. Unfortunately, I doubt the empty will be happy to make another deal with us. That's it? The empty just wanted you, Cass? Sam pushes, knowing there's more to the story. Cass and Dean enter into a silent staring contest. After a brief moment, Dean gives a little shake of his head, and Cass looks disappointed by this. Cass, the empty said once you were truly happy that it would come for you, Jack says, clearly not understanding the silent conversation he was interrupting. It was meant to be a punishment towards me, Cass sighs, breaking his gaze from Dean's. The empty knew that there was something that I truly wanted, but didn't think I could have. Turns out the empty knew something that I didn't. So it was about personal vengeance then, because you woke it up, Sam says, his face lost in thought. Cass, what was your true happiness? Jack asks, as Sam continues to ponder, though he does pause to hear the answer. Cass looks at Dean, who has started playing with his fries, and ever so quietly he asks, Dean, can I tell them? Dean looks up at Cass's face and shuffles slightly in his chair. Cass smiles slightly in reassurance. Dean can feel the panic rising within him. He looks over at Sam. What would Sam think? Is he ready for this? It's also new. He can feel the pit in his stomach rising and the room starts to grow blurry around him. Fear encircles him, making every breath harder. He stands up so abruptly the table shakes. I need a minute. He barely gets out before he runs out of the room. I just think Dean would have a really hard time kind of dealing with all this sudden change and the realization of his feelings. And also, kind of realizing his own sexuality. I think that would be hard for him. I don't think he would take it so easily. I don't think he would just kind of profess his love and then that would be it, everything would be let go. I just think he'd have some problems, some reservations, and I think especially a lot of his problems and reservations might come from Sam. So that's kind of where my head was at in this scene. Dean beelines for his room, the hall around him spinning, his heart rate increasing as breathing gets harder. He can barely discern what is happening to him. He just knows something is wrong. He gets to his door and opens it with ferocity. He stumbles into his room. He grabs a hold of his bed as his knees give out. His head hits the memory-filled mattress as his knees hit the cold, hard floor. Yeah, that's right. I know it's memory foam. Do you know it's memory foam? If you don't know it's memory foam, you're not a true man. He closes his eyes and tries to get a handle on what's happening. A pain encircles his chest and there's a slight ringing in the background. He's so hot, but he can't move to take his shirt off. All he can do is breathe on the floor. Dean doesn't know how long he stays on the floor. The only thing he can focus on is his breathing. Slowly but surely, his heartbeat decreases and a cool breeze hits his skin. The world around him comes back into focus. He still doesn't move. His limbs are paralyzed and there's a knot forming in his stomach. Dean, he hears Sam's voice echo through the once silent room. Are you okay? I'm fine, he grumbles into the mattress. He doesn't move to face Sam, and he knows his voice comes out muffled, but he's frozen in the spot. The slight pressure of a hand comes to rest on his shoulder. He can hear the slight movement of Sam coming to crouch next to him. Dean, you're not okay. What happened? Dean finally moves his head. It feels like 100 pounds, and there's a fog encircling his thoughts. He slowly pulls himself up on tired arms to sit on the edge of his bed, ignoring Sam's attempts at help. He digs his elbows into his thighs and rests his chin on his enclosed fists. Sam comes to sit next to Dean, waiting expectantly. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. Dean sighs. I panicked and ran. You probably had a panic attack, Dean, Sam says quietly. Sam looks down at his hands as Dean nods in agreement. Cass told us after you left. Dean stares at the wall for a while. Silence lapses between them. He doesn't know what to say or what to do. He's so tired, and the events of the day were finally catching up to him. Dean, you know I'm happy for you. I would never judge you for that, Sam says, shuffling in his seat to face Dean. Did you really think I wouldn't be? I don't know, Sammy. Dean runs his hand over his face, digging them into his heavy eyes. It all just became so real, I guess. I guess I was fine when it was just between the two of us. I just hadn't gone around to the part of me telling other people, telling you. I barely had time to process my own feelings. I didn't even give myself the consideration to think of what other people would think. Dean, I know this is new for you, and I'm sorry we should have let it go. You clearly weren't ready yet. Dean looks up to meet Sam's sad eyes. This wasn't about you. It was about me. Dean gets up off the bed, feeling the need to stretch out. He starts walking the length of his room, slowly as Sam sits and watches. I know that you would be happy for me, Sam. Of course I do. I just had this fear that I can't even place that I was doing something wrong, and that by you knowing, it would be like me outing myself. You've had a rough go at love, Dean. I don't blame you for being scared. Sam gets up and stops Dean in the middle of his pacing. They're putting a hand on his shoulder. You aren't doing anything wrong. I'm so scared, Sam. Dean whispers, a sob almost escaping his mouth. Chuck is still out there, and he got rid of everyone, and we don't know how to get them back. Cass almost died in front of me, and who's to say I won't lose him for real this time to Chuck? Who's to say I won't lose you or Jack? Dean, we're almost done. I think I know how we can stop Chuck, but I need your help. We all need you. Sam squeezes his hand on Dean's shoulder and makes him meet his eyes. Dean, I'm scared too, but I have faith in us. It's a classic Supernatural. If you don't talk about how you have faith in your family. Why did I go out Western? Because it's so Western to have faith in your family. I have faith in us too, Sam. Dean says after he pulls himself together and stands tall to meet Sam's eyes. Good. Now back with me to the kitchen. We have a plan to finalize. Sam drops his hand from Dean's shoulder and starts walking towards Dean's open door. Is Cass upset? Dean asks the back of Sam's head as he follows him out of his room. You're going to have to talk to him about that. Dean closes the door of his room behind him as Sam turns to cross his arms over his chest. I'm probably going to fuck this up. I already probably did. Dean grumbles. Sam smirks. I don't think Cass will let you. He knows you too well to let you. Dean tries to hide the smile that emerges on his lips as he and Sam starts walking towards the kitchen. What's that supposed to mean? Sam shrugs and lets his tone grow serious again. Because you sabotage your own happiness, Dean. You deserve to be happy. You deserve happiness. You deserve happiness. You both deserve happiness with each other. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna cry. Every once in a while I think about how dirty they were done, and I almost cry. Fun fact, I saw a baby at 11:30 when I was writing my last note for Supernatural, and it was about this guy dying on rebar, and it got to me. The stress, everything got to me. I sobbed. I would recommend not watching Supernatural if you haven't watched Supernatural, and I would also recommend not binge watching Supernatural in the span of 6 months. It's not worth your time, your energy, your feelings, your sanity. Dean doesn't respond and walks in silence next to Sam. They stop in front of the kitchen door. Dean's had a medley of conflicting thoughts. Sam goes to enter the kitchen, and Dean stops him with a hand on his arm and whispers a thank you. Sam smiles and nods before entering the quiet kitchen. Cass and Jack are still at the table. Cass's eyes meet Dean's as he enters. He raises his eyebrows, a silent question in his eyes. Dean nods and Cass gestures with his head to the seat next to him. Dean sees Sam move to sit next to Jack. Dean walks past Jack and gives his shoulder a slight squeeze. Jack looks up, his eyes full of a mixture of hope and sadness. Dean smiles softly and Jack returns the smile. He then goes and takes the seat next to Cass. Cass's eyes still following him as he sits down. Sam has already taken a seat and is watching Dean carefully. Cass has both of his arms resting on the table, his fingers clasped together. Dean looks over at Cass, who's looking over at him, a softness in his blue eyes. His sky blue eyes. Don't you forget that. That makes Dean smile softly. Dean gently nudges Cass's arm and gestures towards one of his hands. He puts his arm on the table, palm up, and looks at Cass expectantly. Cass smiles brightly. He unclasps his hand and intertwines his warm, callous hand with Dean's. Dean squeezes his hand and gives Cass a wink. This makes Cass's smile grow even bigger. I love that. I love what I wrote right there. That's 10 out of 10. I deserve so many things for that, like awards. No, like this is genuinely like things that I want to happen, and I love that. It's so like, it's so sweet, it's so cute. I feel like the subtle little moments were always the things that I loved about Dean and Cass the most. Like just the little things that you kind of like notice throughout the time. Like the big ones, obviously like 10 out of 10, but like the little things, like how did you know where his pocket knife was? Like how did you know where the handcuffs were? Like it just, and when they switch plates at lunch, like it's so automatic. It's just so cute. Just love that. Those little things. It's a little thing. Sam clears his throat after a second of them staring into each other's eyes. Now they can stare with no limitations. Unlimited staring potential. Are you guys going to stare into each other's eyes all night? Dean finally breaks Cass's stare, and can't even bring anger into his voice when he tells Sam to shut up. Sam just shakes his head, but there's a faint smile on his lips. Alright, let's figure out how to defeat Chuck then, Dean says. This is where I'm going to end this segment of the video because I am tired. Also, yes, I am wearing a banana fish hoodie. Thank you for asking. And you might be asking, oh, Maya, are you a banana fish fan? And I would say no. But I know that my best friends want me to wear this, so I'm wearing it. And I hope that whatever money they spent on this, which I'm sure it was overpriced even if it was $5, it was worth it for this moment. Also, in this pause, I would like to bring up the fact that I heard the CW is being sold, and I would love to buy the CW. I have things that I would like to do to the CW. So if anyone wants me to buy the CW, any money I make off of the YouTube will go towards me buying the CW, and I can also start a GoFundMe if there is interest. I think I would be a great CW owner. For one, I promise that I will do everything in my power to make these two canon. I will try my darndest, okay? I don't care about anything else on the CW, but I will try my darndest. I will fight. Whoever I need to fight to make this happen, okay? So just know I am crazy enough that if you give me the money and the power, I will make it happen, okay? Just look at the video series I did that no one watched. Now think about that. I did that purely for me. So imagine what I would do if I had the CW under my control. The things I would do, okay? Misha, Jensen. I don't know why I said you're Misha and you're Jensen. Okay, listen. I have plans. Jared, you can come too if you want. Alex, you're always invited. Love you. But I'm making this canon. And if I get the CW, if I am able to purchase the CW, for some strange reason, I don't know, I end up making money that will allow me to purchase the CW, I promise you, the viewer, and I promise you, current CEO of CW, I will right your wrongs, I will fix your mistakes, and I will save the day, okay? I will make them canon, I promise. I swear on the cardboard cutouts. I swear on this fanfic that I wrote. I will make them canon. I will find a way. I will do it. I promise. If you want them to be canon, you gotta bet on me, okay? I'm like Troy Bolton in High School Musical 2. You gotta bet on it. I will make it right. And I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna stop till I get my shot. That's who I am. That's my plan. I will end up on top again. You can bet on it. Bet on it, bet on it, bet on it. Troy Bolton, High School Musical 2. Okay, so I'm gonna end it here. Goodbye. There'll be another part out later. I'm now currently 14 of the 52 pages. So perhaps we can split this into 3 parts. Who knows? But I will say goodbye now, and just think about the CW thing. I swear, I am a very productive person. I have receipts. I'm currently now working 8 days in a row, and I'm still doing this. And I'm exhausted. So, I swear, I will do it. I will. I don't know who I'm planning to. CW. Give me a deal. Okay, bye. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye. Bye.